You got to remember, a lot of these heartland Edomites are really J. Okay, a lot of them are. Like it or not, you already gonna have comments and negative stuff. You know, people saying what that I think and I feel, and not using the scripture or the spirit. But nevertheless, he's still speaking before an all pale congregation as he's saying this. So I just want you to have that image in your head as you're listening.
These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked and white races and wicked and black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here. And God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their life. What can I tell you? What can I tell you?
Now, a lot of them were clapping and hooting, but a lot of them were turning beet red with shame. And a lot of them were only clapping because the people around them were clapping. Alright, and that message that I got from the brother Dawad, it said, I think a lot of these white people, or these Edomites, know that they're effed. And they are. As a matter of fact, before I read 2nd Ezra, I want to grab two basic scriptures. I'm going to be like Yaki now, Bible basics. This is basic scripture. Well, this thing wants to do what it wants to do instead of just, there we go. Salakia. But I want to read Colossians 6 and 7. 3 and 25 and Galatians 6 and 7. Alright, and those are two of the first scriptures I learned coming into this truth many years ago. But this is Colossians 3 and 25, and it reads, But he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he hath done. And there is no respect of persons. Alright, there's no respect of persons, man. Alright, because the Lord is going to judge all. Men, women, and children. Alright, you're not going to be exempt because you're 6 months old or you're a year old. You know, if you have a bill to pay with the Lord, you got a tab. You 6 months old and you just came back here. You were just born. And you got a tab from your last time. You know, that might go over some people's heads. Because he said he saw the place of judgment under the sun. That was here on earth. As the scripture says, you know, you die, and when you shall live again, then the judgment shall come. So a lot of these old Edomites that owned slaves and passed all this stolen wealth down to their grandchildren, to their children, back to themselves. The scriptures clearly say every 3-4 generations you regenerate, you come back. So a lot of this old wealth, you got to understand. You go back 4 or 5 generations, 3, 4 generations, and you had slavery. Alright? You got people whose grandparents were old enough to have parents that were in slavery. Okay? Think about that. I was talking to Shapaya just the other day, and you know his father, the father that raised him, was a much older man, and his father's father was an actual slave, was born in slavery. All right, so a lot of these Edomites that are young ones that are walking around today, that are living well, guess what? They were those slave owners. Because they love to say that I wasn't there and I didn't do this, or my family wouldn't. No. You benefited from it. You benefited from it, and you still benefited from it. There's no such thing as driving while white or walking while white. That happens to so-called black and brown people. the streets, and it was unproportionately stopping Hispanics and Negroes getting stopped and getting searched, and it wasn't happening to Edomites. It wasn't happening to white people. Same thing here in Chicago. And you stop the average white teenager, and guess what? You're gonna find all kinds of drugs. They got the money to buy it, and they always have it in their book bags and on their persons. But they don't get stopped like that and searched. Jacob does. This is Galatians 6 and 7. And it reads, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap." Gonna pay. Like, what was that movie? CB4? He gots to pay. Only Jake would know what I'm talking about. Alright? This is 2 Ezra, the 13th chapter. Point is in verse 6, but I'm going to start at verse 1. And may even read a little bit further than that. But it says, "And it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night. And lo, there arose a wind from the sea, and it moved all the ways thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heavens. When he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that was seen under him." It's like over the summer, this past summer, we had a mega camp where we had many brothers from around the country, from different camps that came, out to break bread with the Chicago camp. All right. And there was a fleet of chariots that flew over the main houses. We were all gathered together after camp, watching one of the UFC fights. And I just remember sitting there, and the beloved Elder Barack Alap was out from the LA camp. He was visiting. All right. And you had the Indiana camp here. It's a whole list of brothers. Most of the Midwest camps had showed up. And there was a whole fleet of chariots that flew over, and I heard the noise, and I was afraid. I remember jumping up to run outside because I thought that the brothers was out there getting into it with them wicked ass jakes in the neighborhood. But they were outside, all praising the name of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, because you had a whole fleet of chariots that were flying over the camp. And the crazy thing is, the same thing had happened out east in New York. And I believe that the night before, it had also happened out in LA. So, you have to wonder, why is it that these chariots are always showing up over the GMS camps, but among the other Israelite camps, GMS are the worst of Israel? Go figure. All right, so just like we saw it, and all the niggas in the hood that was out that night, they saw it too. They saw it too. Verse 13 and 4. "And whatsoever the voice went out of his mouth, all that burned that heard his voice, like as earth faileth when it feeleth the fire." So those are those laser beams, those laser rays, that concentrated fire. All right. "And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of the number from the four winds of heaven, to subdue the man that came out of the sea," that came out of the heavens, man, on those chariots. So this is going to happen in the midst of World War III, which is so close at hand. 5G and 6G is up. Digital currency is being put into place by all the banks around the world, all the major banks. IMF and the Feds are pushing it. And for that digital currency to work, there has to be some sort of device implanted in the people. That's where we are. The MOB and World War III are at hand. They're close. And the Lord comes back during that time. Verse 6. "But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, and flew upon it." That's that gigantic chariot, just like the one they showed you on Independence Day, except you won't see the beginning or the end of it. That's how big it's going to be. All right, and all the other smaller war chariots are going to come out of it, just like in that movie. Where do you think they got that from? They got it right out of the scriptures. a place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. And after I beheld, and lo, they all which were gathered together to subdue him were so afraid, yet durst fight. And lo, he saw the violence of the multitude that came. He neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and it fell with violence upon the multitude which were prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of the innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived but only dust and the smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. What he witnessed was what they in Star Wars they call the Death Star. That ray of energy and light and power, that tempest of burning power that the Lord is going to do to annihilate the armies of the earth and bring them under subjection. And then after that, the saints of the Lord are going to come down, the 144,000, and those that are left are going to experience this. All right? This is Ezekiel 25 and 14. And it says, I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in Edom according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith Yahweh power. Call halal Yahweh by Shem Abishai, by Shem Rakak Wadash, Wa Abba Babal, Shalom, Kwam Yasharallah.